especially when you have a really strong Ezreal player on the other side. As we see the Lulu ban comes through this time, feels kind of funny to see that.
Yeah.
As, you know, this leaves open the Nocturne, and DRX, I think, are going to grab it. We'll see if they can utilize the composition better. But they're not going to have the new Lulu Xin Zhao counter against it, Gen.G or not, after that ban. So let's see what they want to pick here in that double rotation. Wow, they take the Varus instead.
Yeah, Varus, of course, pretty high priority worldwide right now, but still, I don't know whether it's necessarily the first pick scenario, but I think that this sort of goes to what DRX just believe, right? It's that Nocturne is counterable, and a lot of teams weren't necessarily believing that. But Gen.G being able to just lock down the Ezreal if they would like it. We'll see what they pair alongside it with Karma and the Lulu gone.
It's a little bit concerning to me, Atlas, that you pick red side and the Varus pick seems to be surprising, right? Like, there's not an instant lock. The two most popular picks you're going to have with the champions open on blue side are going to be the Varus, the Nocturne. You know, maybe yesterday could have been the Lee Sin. But you shouldn't be shocked by this pick, and the fact that they chose red side and they're looking for this strong pairing, but they don't have an insta-lock here, makes me feel like, did they think Karma just wasn't going to be banned and they were going to have that here? This is a little bit puzzling to me that they actually don't have a plan.
I'm actually so surprised Gen.G didn't just lock Tahm Kench and just play the Ezreal Tahm Kench like they have for so many years.
Do it to me, Pioshik.
Yeah, Viego being considered right now. Has been played in the jungle a little bit by some of our players, but he needs to make sure that he at least hops over for a little bit of a Kindred hover before doing something else. You may as well just do it, Pioshik. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that is just another Xin Zhao. Let's see whether the Tahm Kench just comes in now. And I wouldn't mind it at all.
I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind a Thresh pick here either. The Tahm Kench seems a lot safer at the moment.
Yep, I think that like when the paranoia comes in, you just devour your AD carry. You're often just standing next to him anyway, so the limited vision not going to be as much of an issue.
Yeah. This draft for Gen.G seems very so far similar to what we saw in game number 1. This time there's no Lulu to mess with the fun, and so I already like the draft better for Gen.G so far. We see the Volley Bear come through, and we'll see where that ends up going. It's oftentimes jungle, but it has been flexed already by Chovy in the mid lane. We know it's been played in the top lane, so...
Yep, Rascal was also one of our volley players, so...
Let's not counter eggs before they're hatched in terms of this. That's always how the drafts are going nowadays in this meta, where for DRX, you know where all three of those players are going, but for Gen.G, not so much just yet.
Not just yet.
And Twisted Fate gets banned, actually, this time, by Gen.G, so they're removing that option for DRX for a little bit more global control.
Yeah, and it's just both of the solo lanes that DRX are looking for, unless they want to run some old school Varus mid. You know, if B2D decides to go back to the Azir, do you know what the classic counter pick was? It was definitely Varus.
Yeah.
You know, many years ago, showing my age there just a little bit. As the Brad going to be taken away, Brad Yuumi would make some sense over the side of DRX. Yuumi got us, you know, a couple of buffs.
Yeah, I mean, the enchanter that kind of won the war in terms of actually getting that bot push has been Karma. We haven't seen anyone pick the Seraphine just yet here in summer. You and I were talking about it yesterday. We wouldn't have been shocked to see it. In terms of other, you know, bans you could see here in terms of the supports, you could actually ban the Nautilus now. You could ban the Leona. Both very strong. Leona ends up working very, very well with Nocturne. Ends up being fairly safe in the lane. Yeah, but you can't ban both, so if you ban one, the other one kind of goes through. So I think they're thinking about banning something else entirely here.
Rakan ban could be okay just in the isolated matchup with the Tahm Kench, just because Tahm Kench doesn't necessarily like it quite as much, but Lee Sin going to be taken away, and then the Akali going to be picked up now this time for either Rascal or BDD, depending on where they want to go, and both of these players, very, very good Akalis. That's actually one of the main strengths of Rascal in my mind, is the fact that he plays so many of these assassins on the top side of the map so effectively and always has, that they often just have added flexibility between himself and BDD.
Solka said in an interview that he actually thought that control mages were actually going to win out eventually in the end, even though they have not been the more popular mid picks so far in our first 2 days of summer. But he's going to be the first one to play one with the Orianna lock-in here. And with the Gnar as the 5th pick, if that ends up being where we go for DRX, it ends up being a pretty standard, pretty safe front-to-back team fight. It's not necessarily the anti-dive comp we saw with the Lulu just before. This is a very well-rounded composition that can front-to-back very well in the later parts of the game. Pyosik will fall off a little bit on the Xin Zhao, but if you can play another defensive game, keep that carry safe.
Yeah.
Certainly a strong composition, just like we've already seen. As, okay, life. You can take away his Bard, but, however...
he still has
his Braum.
Yes, the Braum. So Braum going to be locked in, certainly a very strong bottom side of the map. I like Braum into Tahm Kench as well. I like the idea that Gen.G wanted to make sure that they had the best bottom lane for themselves that they could find, even though, you know, not a lot was really left up to chance, but DRX, you can always trust them to throw some spanners in. So wanting to make sure that everything was pretty much set in stone before deciding on their composition. And let's just see where everything's going. Likely that it is going to be Rascal there on the top side with the Nocturne.
There's two targets.
And the Volibear jungle.
Yeah, there's two targets here in this case that are very vulnerable to the Paranoia dive, Volibear going in. It's the Varus and the Orianna in this case that can end up being vulnerable. So Tahm Kench is going to have to be on double defensive duty here. I think the main focus will be keeping the Varus alive for Bao, so he can do that consistent damage in some of these longer team fights. But this is a composition for Gen.G that's not as all-in as the last one. You know, they have the Akali, they have some carry potential there, but they also have the backup of the Ezreal, just like we saw in game number 1. So it's not a comp that needs to have an insane tempo advantage. It's one thing that you can get early on with this Nocturne pick, but it's not absolutely required to snowball early. They do have some ability to scale into the later parts. Both teams, not the strongest late-game comps ever, but I think you're going to lean a little bit towards DRX if it's a slower, stable game.
Yeah, it's interesting because Varus isn't the same hyper carry that you see out of Jinx, right? You're not going to have that consistent late-game damage that's coming through, you know, time and time again. It's going to be more based on the lethality, hitting really hard in that mid-game, but you will still have that layer of safety. You will now be able to poke far more effectively instead of just, you know, waiting for zap after zap, which is a little bit easier to dodge than that of the piercing arrow. So somewhat similar idea, a little bit more CC available for DRX as well, and a little bit more damage available for their composition. Or maybe it's just the same, just that they've added King in, who's more of a tank bruiser rather than a supportive mage.
His role in these fights will be fairly similar in terms of the CC that he'll put off. The Wild Growth was very successful in CCing defensively. He won't be able to do it as easily on command with this Gnar pick. But I think that DRX is going to have this really strong mid-game where they could fight around Orianna, having level 6, and she can obviously set up some really nice CCs, some big balls to lock people up with. And then Bao synergizes well with that. Once he gets his first item online, his Prowler's Claw, you can burst down some of these squishy targets on Gen.G very easily. I mean, you're not going to be focusing Braum, you're not going to be focusing the Volibear, but everybody else dies early in those early to mid-game fights once that Prowler's Claw is up. So I like DRX's chances of getting a pretty nice, stable lead in the early to mid-game here with this comp.
And if we have a look over the side of Gen.G, some interesting stuff. The fact that Ruler has taken the teleport this time, not feeling like he's going to be under too much threat in that lane, and has decided instead just to make sure that he can get any reset that he wants and stay ahead of the curve on this Ezreal. Often, I feel like you see, you know, players like Ruler picking up the teleport when they're, you know, it's the this means business game.
Yeah.
It's what it sort of feels like here.
Yeah, also Akali going to be picking up the Flash this time, so no Flash last game we saw, but this time it's going to be the Flash teleport.
BDD going to be taking a leaf out of one of the old books as opposed to the new one that Gwen sort of brought about.
Yeah, I like it. You know, obviously Ignite gives you a lot of early trading power, but and potentially execution power, but I think the Flash just is so good in every situation from start to finish in a game of League of Legends. That's why you usually see it in 10 out of 10 most games.
I remember the discussions about Flash like 8 years ago. It's like, we need to make sure that people pick other summoner spells.
Actually, no.
Yeah, and then they halved the range of Flash, and everyone's like, oh, we're still going to use it every single game. And I think at that point, Riot just gave up. They're like, yeah, I mean, it's a fun ability to use, so let's just keep it, I guess.
It's really fun. It's awesome. The game is balanced around it at this point, so.
And I remember the time where you also, like, you didn't get Flash until you're, like, a specific level. So when you're playing the game, it's like people with this broken ability
that
you just didn't have access to. I think it was level 15 or something like that on your account.
I think they
leveling was awful.
I think they only just recently removed that completely from the game, because I remember with one of my new Korean accounts, I actually didn't have Smite at first. I was like, well, this is terrible. I can't play jungle. And by the way, nobody plays jungle in the very beginning of the game, so I'm like, well, I guess like nobody can jungle. I
remember that. Yeah, you were obsessed with playing jungle. Like, I want to play League of Legends jungle. I don't want to play League of Legends. I want to play League of Legends jungle, please.
Yes. I mean, the thing is, like, when you're playing and nobody wants to jungle, you're like, well, I guess I'll do this and we're going to stick lead because the enemy team won't have a jungler. But then you're like, well, I guess he doesn't have a jungler because they don't have Smite. Wait, I don't have Smite. Oh, no. I guess I understand why nobody's playing jungle now.
And you used to be able to do it because you didn't used to have to have Smite in order to jungle. You just play Warwick and then just run around the jungle in some.
Now it's like, oh, you don't have Smite, you can't buy the jungle items.
Yeah, it's all just, it's really doomed at this current state of the game. A little bit of reminiscing going on, ladies and gentlemen, while we are just watching the game unfold in front of us. Clid currently close to a 90% win rate, 8-1 on the Volley Bear. He's had a pretty good time. Yeah, Gen.G
so far. One of the teams that really popularized using it this year in the jungle.
Yep.
And also even at Worlds last year when it was becoming more and more popular. Really, arguably the peak of Volley Bear last year.
Yep, and a team that was very good at flexing it, as we spoke about, was mostly played by Rascal, but with a win rate like that, certainly bragging a little bit that their ability to flex it is very, very good. BDD, unfortunately missing that CS, but we won't hold it against him.
No, we won't, not this time. Well, you know, the mana pool is your resource bar in this matchup in the early parts of the mid lane for Solka versus BDD, the Orianna versus Kali matchup. He's going to back now because he cannot harass any further. He's going to crash a wave, come back with a full pool of mana, and he's going to have his tier and his first spellbook. And BDD will go back and do the same. And then it's going to become a little bit more of a contentious matchup there in the mid lane.
Yeah, and let's have a sort of conversation about what DRX did here, because it's a very similar composition to what they built before, right? Like, they see the Ezreal Nocturne and they're like, okay, let's put something together that's similar to what we just had, but make up for the fact that there's a couple of things that have been banned away. And I really like the Orianna adaptation, because it's sort of similar, right? You got a speed up, you have the ability to break, stopping some backs here as Life is going to get quite upset, making sure that Ruler is going to be able to get there as Kyoshik can utilize this extra time that he has available to himself to take down this Cloud Drake. Should be able to do so pretty much uncontested. You can see Clid's on the top side.
They have mid-prio, they have that bot control, they have a control ward here, and he's going to be able to get the scuttle after this. The ping coming down so that Becca is indicating he's going to come over and help finish off the last parts of this. And it will help him move the shields there and get rid of the scuttle. So this is actually really a great lead here in terms of objective control for DRX early on. I like what you're talking about in terms of the Orianna, and I feel like with this objective lead that DRX have now, that they got this first Drake for free, the second one I think is going to be arguably the hardest one for Gen.G to take.
Okay, Ruler in a little bit of trouble here. The Piercing Arrow going to win out that trade for Bao, and unfortunately Life not there to get the Winter's Bite or the tag onto the Varus, and therefore it's feeling very, very nice.
Yeah, it's really scary when the Dirk is done, actually, in this weird moment in lane, where, you got your Spellblade up as Ezreal, but you're only able to get value out of that when you're hitting your skill shots, but every time Varus hits you, he's getting serious value, and you're squishy, and the lethality is just so massive at this stage. And this is why I think the mid game, once the Prowler's Claw is up too, here for the Varus is going to be so good for DRX. Until you start to see Rulers start to get those items online, and Rascal can really start to run away with the control over the map that Gen.G should have in the later parts of the game with this paranoia. Clid is being super aggro here. I don't know about this.
We're going to try and steal away this blue buff. You can see Solka's going to move on in. BDD is spotted. So theoretically a 2v2, but Rascal, he's got the paranoia, but doesn't have the inside track, as Kingen with a fantastic Narbar. Going to try and deny this. Clid coming on in. He's booking it forward. Wind becomes lightning. That is going to be the secure for Clid, but can he keep himself alive? The flash out is there, but Kyoshik's going to be taken down for first blood, and now there's 3 members of Gen.G in the area. BDD over the wall just beautifully, as the wallop ain't going to be enough for Kingen to answer that one back, and that is 2 kills for Gen.G.
Just getting out finessed here, and hey, the BDD flash getting some value already in this game. Gets over the wall, gets out scot-free. That's 2 kills for Gen.G. They're able to take control over this part of the jungle. Waste Kingan's resources. He's going to have that slow walk back up to the top lane where Rascal's already crashing a wave. He's going to have a nice little advantage here, a nice little timing for him to get out of here and look towards a potential Rift Herald ward clear. Looks like he's just going to reset first. I thought King was about to boomerang him down. I was like, damn, nice. But no, he's not going to actually stop that back. Nope. This is a nice little skirmish here in the early parts of this game. And this is one of those fights where you look at it and you go, somebody dies in this movie, right? Like, this is not going to be a fight where both teams kind of walk away. And Pyosik finds himself fighting off more than he can chew here. He actually looks for Clid. Then Clid has his ultimate, so there's just no way out. Like, you either have to choose the other target or you have to walk away earlier than this. The follow flash is so good for BDD. He knows he's going to get the execution. And Kingan, try as he might, there's just no way for him to lock down a single target here once the flash is over the wall for BDD. Yeah, like if he gets BDD before he gets over the wall, maybe, but he's just never going to beat that Akali.
It's just a little bit of a shame as well because the Shockwave was eaten entirely by Clid's ultimate and otherwise just didn't connect to any of the targets. So unfortunately for Solka, not really able to have much of an impact there. And, you know, didn't quite have the items either. The early game Orianna not really able to offer much when it comes to answering back damage. Good news story though for DRX is the fact that they have a CS advantage in the jungle. They've got a CS lead on the bottom side of the map, and both of the solo lanes are very competitive right now. So, not the end of the world. Nope. But certainly a good news story here for Gen.G. If you're a Gen.G fan, you know, watching the last game might have been difficult, but watching the beginning of this one certainly showing that they've still got it.
So Rascal gets 2 plates here, by the way. I just wanted to point this out because it was off camera. Just try to get those words out. It's been a long night.
Ooh, Rascal actually still in vision here as Clid moves on up and says, do I have to babysit all the time?
He does end up losing a lot of his health bar. He's got teleport coming back up online right now, but he was able to force King into back at a very inopportune moment. He was able to clear that wave super fast, grabs 2 plates worth of extra gold. And is going to teleport right back up to catch the next one. So playing a very nice game here in the top lane, keeping the CS even. Yep, despite all that roaming he had to do early on.
Really good thing as well is the fact that Shelly's still available here for Gen.G. They were able to take that one down a little bit earlier. And so Clid, he can plonk that down and only extend this gold lead further.
I think it's going to get tossed down right before this Drake fight. And, you know, Varus does not actually have that Prowler's Claw just yet. It's not ready. You know, he needs a little bit more gold before he can actually finish that. So we're at this funky moment in time for DRX where they wanted to have that big spike before the second Drake, but they're just not going to. We're going to get a little bit of extra value in the lane itself.
Yep, that's a little bit of sharing there with the stand beside me from Life, making sure that they share the piercing arrow damage. I think an Unbreakable was wanting to be used, but might have been on cooldown.
Gen.G did not group up for this Drake right away, nor have they tossed down the Rift Herald just yet. Now they're on it, and it looks like they're actually going to save the Herald here.
Yeah, they don't feel like they need to worry about it as Pyosik is taking his puppies right now, probably looking for his Raptor camp next, and just not wanting to challenge.
And this is that timing, right? Like, see, exactly as the Drake goes down is when Bao has his Prowler's Claw, and he's walking back to the lane like, oh, I just barely missed the window, you know? And that's rough. And that's Gen.G feeling like they got a big win here. They get away with it free. Don't even have to waste the Herald to guarantee that prio. Really nicely done.
Now Kingan, he's pushed this wave up, but you can see Ruler and Life, they're going to join, and Kingan's just going to have to bail. I don't know whether he's actually spotted what's going on here, and it looks like the answer is going to be no. It's a bit of a wraparound.
It's like Becca couldn't even believe it. Like, he walked
over. All right, it goes the paranoia immediately. Not messing around, flashing straight away, but it ain't going to be enough. Pop goes the nah. And Pyosik says, nah, I ain't going to be able to get in there, my friend. I'm sorry. 3-0 in favor of Gen.G.
They're going to get some plates down here bottom. They did go clear out all the wards. Becca was pinging that there was vision in the Drake. I thought it was pretty funny they walked into the empty pit afterwards as if he couldn't believe it was gone, but they're able to identify that there's no vision here, and there's also no one coming around this area. They drop down a ward, so even though there is a pick, and the Herald is going to get tossed down here, at least they're able to get, it looks like what will be all plates here on the bottom side. No, BDD going to prevent the last one, or at least attempt to.
Now he'll try. See whether it's actually going to be enough. As you can see, first turret will go over to Gen.G.
It's close here. Is he going to get it? I don't think so.
next minion wave is a little bit too far away, so thankfully for B2D he's able to clear out their last remaining minion. So the turret will survive for a little bit longer. We've got just under a minute before these turret plates fall down, and Bao's probably looking forward to grabbing a bit of extra money for himself.
Yeah, he certainly is. I mean, this is the consolation that DRX get after that exchange. Bao.
Yeah, and you can see Pyosik over the wall. Rascal has been discovered. B2D's just going to get out of there as the teleport is going to come in. Rascal flashes, but I don't think he's... Oh my goodness! Very, very close. But Pyosik, no cigar this time around. Ruler's going to have to flash Shockwave onto two. That one was better, Solka! And both of them get mopped up. The bottom lane just dies in seconds.
And I guarantee
DRX are on the board.
I guarantee you Ruler's getting his choice to pick teleport right now. Teleport's way late into that fight. Now Kingan's got control of the top side of the map for free here too. Klid's gonna have to come pick up the pieces. And this is Pyosik in that exchange, down 2 levels, no fear, engages in. The rest of the team rotates over so quickly, and Ruler feels like he's panicked. This is a good skirmish, we have to win. This is why I chose teleport. I want to be in every fight, I want to be relevant, but he's just not that relevant at this stage of the game. Not to mention that he comes into the time where it's already over. It's just way too late. We're gonna watch this Kingan pick that happens moments before. And, you know, this ends up being a really nice pick for Gen.G. Sure, the trade is at the bottom, you know, the plates go down there, but they get the entirety of this turret. But this is the fight that's really crazy, is Pyosik goes in up against Rascal here. And again, he's 2 levels down. Meanwhile, it's a defensive setup here for B2D. He has to back off. And Gen.G decided to commit in. They're like, we're still going to fight this. You see the teleport come in like a million years too late for Ruler. And he goes down. And it's a really nice shockwave. This is the mid-game team fighting with the Prowler's Claw that I'm talking about. You wanted to have this around the second Drake. You don't get it there, but you get a free team fight that you force right around that bot turret. Get the turret as well, and DRX actually even up the goal.
And I really like it when moments like this happen, because you kind of thought giving away that Drake is not what DRX wanted to do, right? They wanted to hit a mid-game, and they wanted to be able to possibly threaten to get towards a Dragon Soul, and you see them not doing anything and getting that reset, and you're like, oh dang, this is bothersome. But then they commit to the bottom side, they make sure that they stick around, try and get the last remaining plates and the turret to put their Varus in the best position possible. They know that he has the Prowler's Claw if there ever is going to be a fight, and then Pyosik's in position with wards already there in order to engage on the Nocturne before the ulti is going to get him any value. And I think maybe it was on cooldown anyway. Just really good stuff from DRX.
It's just really well handled by them, and they know their win conditions, they know their big power spike, and they're going to force those fights around this timing. And you'll have to see it. DRX coming into the series, again, with pretty unusual draft in game number 1. The game 2 draft, similar, but obviously very different in terms of how it's going to function. It doesn't feel that weird, though, after watching Pyosik really crush already with the Xin Zhao once. We know it's a champion that's very meta right now in solo queue, being played in China quite a bit. So DRX coming into this game, I'd say they're still significantly behind, but they are really trying to fight back. And now this third Drake, which will be their second if they take it, they have actually prime position to take it. It looks like Gen.G are just going to give it up.
Yep, looks like Drift Herald is going to be the priority. 14 seconds on that Drake like you were talking about.
They want this fight again in the mid-game. They're like, no. You guys could try to take the Herald, try to trade objectives. We're rotating over. They're a little bit slow to stop it.
And they might be able to actually get a full wave to crash towards this turret and actually do a fair bit of damage to it as well with the extra damage that Bao does have. Be able to chunk the turret as Pyosik goes in. A little bit of a disconnect there though as the shockwave finds absolutely nothing. The same thing is going to be said for Pyosik, who is going to be taken down. B2D on the board now. Life goes golden, but now could be out of position. Hail of arrows and sulfur are going to be enough here as there's the Nara into the wall. Kingan wasting no time as the ult comes down. Bao flashes immediately. The tongue's not quite long enough there from Becca. He needed to get that evolution to Licky, I think, at that point. As Gen.G, they get the teleport in. They're now underneath the turret. They've got Shirley here to back them up. And if they don't have their big grizzly bear, they at least have the shellfish.
I mean, you said it though, right at the beginning of the fight, you called it out. Huge disconnect between the Xin Zhao, Pyosik in this case, and the rest of the squad, right? He goes in, everyone else is walking away, and then you see the shockwave come through. Soga's like, well, okay, I guess you're going in. Oh, watch it again because he goes in all by himself, and then it looks like very, very awkward the way DRX decides to collapse back. It's the shockwave comes through, and everyone else is walking away. And then you see the turn here as finally Kingen arrives in this fight. They're able to really put Rascal down low. He survives, though. If you get this kill, it's totally different. But if everybody's on the same page and Varus is actually doing damage throughout the entirety of that Pyosik engage, I think this is a win for DRX. But because they took it so slowly, Gen.G are able to come back in here with full health bars and actually take a massive advantage with Shirley. Yeah,
and BDD and Ruler, as you can see, completely untouched in this fight at the same time. And that's what a good fight looks like for Gen.G.
It certainly does.
I kind of feel like it drags us back to the same conversation about DRX with basically the same comp as last time, but not as good. You know, Lulu is just better when it comes to augmenting a Xin Zhao engage, things like that. And Jinx is just more reliable as far as a late game carry. You shouldn't be able to have as much power at this stage of the game with a Jinx. The Varus certainly much better at that as far as mid game, like his 2 items are certainly a lot more powerful. Doesn't quite have them just yet, but will be quite strong.
I think Pyosik had the right idea to engage at that angle. You know, he was very close to the turret, so it was a bit of an awkward position. He would have loved to have had them a little bit further down. But I think his idea about engaging and trying to win that fight was correct, but the team didn't trust that their composition was going to be able to win at that angle.
Or the communication just wasn't quite there from Pyosik as well.
Exactly.
Maybe rush of blood situation, you never really know.
In that moment, like, those are the moments you want to be taking with this Varus comp, because it isn't going to be as strong as Jinx in the late game, right? But it is stronger than Jinx right now. And you want to be able to take these kills and take these fights as best as you can to guarantee these objectives, right? They wanted to rotate up and stop the Herald instead of trading the Herald for a Drake, but they rotate up, don't stop the Herald, and then are actually losing the fight that follows up, which then loses them the Drake, right? So like they got greedy, and then the execution was bad, and they lost everything. They lost all 3 things: the team fight, the Herald, and the Drake. So it's a really big pendulum swing now into favor of Gen.G.
Yeah, and that sort of like makes you go back to the Pyosik decision. You're like, well, maybe it was a little bit over-aggressive, but I wouldn't want him to stop being himself. So I'm not going to say anything against it. Now Pyosik looking for an opportunity here potentially on the top side of the map. There's Bao down the belt. There's Devour available, but maybe waited a little bit too long as the Grey Health is going to be there immediately. As he comes out of the belly, it is going to be a dead Varus, and Shockwave lands onto 2, but doesn't really do too much. Pyosik now just trying to be the hero. BDD going to be taken down. Sulker is over the wall, but Pyosik is real dead this stage of the game as Kingen throws a rock, but he doesn't really have much more in the tank. And Gen.G are looking to just start off this Baron in the faces of DRX.
I mean, it's a really early Baron, but when you get those kills like that, I mean, you've only lost your Akali damage onto a Baron. You're very happy to take this down in 20 minutes, 20 and a half. It was a really nice fight for Gen.G, and once again, it's a real small mistake that leads to such a massive victory for Gen.G. Bao, as Varus, is just way out of position into a composition that will collapse and execute him so quickly. You can't always just feel like, okay, I got my bodyguard with me. If I'm with Kench, I'm safe for anything, you know? It's not like he's walking on the streets at Seoul at night. It's not safe out there on the Rift, okay? It's not like it is out here, okay? And he's out here, he's like, I'll clear this wave. No, you won't. You will not get away with it. No chance of that. And this Devour is hopeful at best. Doesn't even get hit by the true shot, but
it's also really, really late, right? He's already dead when he's in the belly being devoured. And it just means that BDD is able to tidy it up.
Yeah. It's like, it makes things even kind of worse in a weird way. Guarantees the Baron now for Gen.G. And it feels like with some small mistakes and actually just mechanical outclassing, Gen.G is showing us why they were the favorites going into this series.
I'm trying to remember whether Bao actually had the flash available.
I think he did not.
Because if he didn't have flash, then maybe it's better to walk as far as possible because, of course, you're slower when you are devoured. But if he can just get devoured, get spat out right next to the wall and flash over, then you know, he survives a little bit more likelihood. However, you know, we do have hindsight as 2020.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. We'd have to go back a time and look, but either way, like the biggest thing to do in this situation is to not be by yourself trying to get that extra minion in the mid lane against a Nocturne composition with Akali. That was probably step one, but you know, at the end of the day,
yep, yeah, that's true.
He's crossed the line here.
Maybe it's time to go back to the root cause of the situation as Ruler finds a true shot barrage on some air, and BDD is just diving into a backline once again. Goes golden this time, Paranoia into the backline, and there is no Orianna to speak of for this fight. BDD still fighting this one out, and he is looking to be able to escape as well as Bao. Survives for a lot longer than I was expecting in a lot of these fights, however, still not going to survive for long enough. 3 dead on the side of DRX, King and Becca. Not a lot that they can offer to this one, and it's going to be the 3rd Drake for Gen.G and their 2nd Inferno.
And without the Lulu, you just don't have the peel into these extremely high octane engages from Gen.G. And with the execution as crisp as it is here for Gen.G, and the items are as explosive as they are here for BDD. He's got his belt. He bought his Zonias actually a long time ago. It's just really easy to clean up these targets, and unfortunately for DRX, it's just over and over and over again. You're getting caught. We've already eclipsed the moment where Varus's power spike is with his lethality build versus Ezreal's consistent damage. Like, Ezreal is obviously now way more valuable. And look at BDD, he just comes in here with his cloud. He has his Zonias up. Nobody can touch him. Meanwhile,
yeah, in the meantime, BDD is just going to solo kill King, and they're on the top side of the map. Very nicely done. BDD's wallet really starting to amass some coinage. As you can see, 4-1 and 6 now on the Akali, and no one is safe in a side lane now. Gen.G really, I mean, this is what Gen.G planned to do in game number 1, and it didn't work, and now they're furious, and they're 100% making it work here in the second game.
I guarantee you the Lulu ban stays in game 3 if we go there. just keep that away.
Oh yeah.
And this didn't have to be a Varus first pick, let's not forget. It could have been Nocturne first pick, could have seen a completely different depth of the DRX.
All right, in the meantime, Rascal is going to be spell shielding quite beautifully. The Shockwave here on the bottom side of True Shot Barrage says goodbye to Sulker, as Rule is going to pick that one up. Says thank you very much. I thought delivery here in Korea was fantastic. Ruler absolutely proving it. As now Gen.G just going to be sieging on this inner turret on the top side. And it's all just going to plan this time. Chains of Corruption come down.
They finally hit him, but he's like, I built Frozen Heart, so all your skill shots miss, and then I finally get hit, and it's like it's healing me.
And this is like the thing that feels the most bad about Lethality Varus, is that you're against an Ezreal that builds Frozen Heart.
Yeah.
Like the most perfect option.
You can't auto-attack the Akali. The Paranoia makes it hard to hit anybody. You know, you've got a volley bear on top of you at all times.
Yep.
Brom's making your life miserable, and you know, the power spike around those 2nd to 3rd Drakes, we're already past that. Gen.G's on Soul Point, and Rascal is starting to control the map. You have Ruler in prime position to continue to control these fights with his supreme damage. He's impossible to kill, and this game is all but locked up, sadly, for DRX. You know, you don't have any windows back into this. The Varus isn't going to scale to a better place than this, sadly. Not with the item build he's chosen, which is the best and most viable build. As we're going to watch how King and died during the replay.
Oh, no.
That's a whoopsie.
It was the mind game issue.
Yeah, he thought he was going to jump back in.
Yep, trying to read BDD and his timing, and unfortunately just pressed the button.
Yeah.
Feels bad.
I mean, that's when your fingers slip, when you're sweating, when you're playing on stage.
Yep.
Back here in LoL Park, sometimes you miss it. I mean, he probably dies either way, but he looks silly unless you explain why that happened, and that's why. He's trying to read the dash back in.
And you know, you sort of saw it happening, but also you saw the miss happening, right? Like that was a BDD that knew that he owned him at that point in time, right? It's like the download in a fighting game. Like the download had been complete. BDD is certainly feeling himself here in this game.
Certainly is. And I mean, I'm looking at DRX's composition and state of the map, and it looks very dark, actually, on the blue side of things. If we had a vision check, you would see that they can't see anything outside of the base, basically. They have one ward over the wall at the top side of their base and one just north of where Nar sits here. And besides that, they have no vision whatsoever. They have no idea if Baron is being taken out. They're going to have to force their way out here, but by the time they get to Baron, which will be killed on sight, on spawn, the kill on spawn order here for Gen.G, there's just nothing DRX can do about this. And then the map is going to get even further under control of Gen.G, and they might even be able to push to win with this.
Yep, it should be the case. I think the DRX know that it is all but over. Very comfortably taking that one down. And yeah, they get the bad news by the big old scream. DRX now just moving towards their bottom side jungle. BDD's here. There's the paranoia. Wanting to put them out of their misery by the looks of things here is Rascal going down relatively low. Yoshik actually keeping himself alive, but the Varus not going to be so lucky. A 1-for-1 for now, but BDD's managed to pick up a second. Becker in trouble. The flash out of the way of the Shuriken backflip, and that could have definitely been the start of a potential pentakill, but there is the Arcane Shift over the wall. Ruler.
He doesn't flash for it, you know. He's going to show them a little bit of respect. He's just going to sit here and wait for the rest of his team and these Baron minions to hit the inhibitor. And that is going to be what looks like all she wrote for this second game.
Yeah, Gen.G going to bring us to a third. We are going the distance here. The rains are at pause. We were talking about the weather before. And it is certainly pouring.
Yeah, you asked me last time I used the landline. Do you remember the last time we talked about using the landline? I kind of want to go back to that time.
It was quite some time ago. Quite some time ago. As DRX, they're trying to put up the defense.
Even the true shot here is good.
Oh yeah.
It stays true.
Everything absolutely hurts right now. They don't exactly have a lot of siege. Yes, Ruler can poke and things like that, but his range isn't necessarily fantastic.
Their siege is the siege minions and the 11,000 gold lead.
Jengen, that's a bit of a whoopsie, is relatively tanky as the Shockwave is going to come forward. That is the Varus dead though. They're underneath a few turrets here at the same time as the Paranoia was held onto for a beautiful amount of time. The ultimate was running, so unfortunately didn't do a lot of damage, but still, Rascal's just playing with his food at this stage, and the two Nexus turrets are all that stand between Gen.G and victory in game number 2, outside of, I guess, the Master Chef Tom Kench, but I don't think he's going to be able to stop this. Nexus now going to be taking the damage, and Gen.G even things up. You could feel the anger, you could feel how much they felt they deserved to win game number 1, and that was the